Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. In this video we're going to be taking a first look at Frost, who is an S-Class promo character that is going to be released later today. This is an early look at him, so he could change potentially before release, but generally speaking they remain around the same as what you see here. Now Frost, I believe, is from the comics. He's wearing very similar armor to Mercer, except we can't see his face. He's wearing a helmet. I think this is the same style of helmet that they wore in the comics. There are a lot of, Commonwealth characters like that are armored up. Effectively, I think it's their army, effectively, and they're pretty well geared. I'm going to be honest, that's pretty good gear for the apocalypse. I think you're not too high a risk of getting bitten, or at least you're not too high a risk of it getting through the armor, which is actually awesome. Now we'll look at his stats. It's 3,613 attack, 4,780 defense, and 3,762 HP. His trait is tough and his role is medic. For a medic, he's got huge amounts of defense. Generally speaking, you'd have a tank role with this sort of stat base. So we have talked about this in the past on my stream and stuff. It does seem like they don't get the roles correct when it comes to stats versus rush versus roll. There seems to be always something off, be it the rush is off, be it the stats are off. It doesn't seem to stay in line. It doesn't mean too much, but it's just there's not too much consistency there, let's say. So you do have to have specific mods pretty much for each character rather than basing it on role type. For instance, a support character, you can generally go wherever you want to go, attack or defensive stats, because they generally have quite balanced stats. At least they did in the 6-star era, whereas in the S-Class era, it seems like they're just kind of wherever. Like you could have a support character come out with a lot more attack stat than they do HP and defense in the future. We'll see, but hopefully it becomes a little bit more consistent going forward. Now checking out Frost's rush, it's called Regenerating Revival. It is a 76 AP cost rush. Revive one teammate with 50% of their max HP. All teammates regain up to 30% of their max HP for 5 turns. So obviously this rush is a medic rush. It plays into that role. That's 100% plays in line with that. The issue here is I always think that it's a kind of a cop-out to just put a revive on a medic. Just like, it's easy, you don't have to think too hard when you're creating that character. Just slap a revive on. It's always been an issue. In the 6-star era, it was like every 5 characters there was just like a medic with a revive, because it was just like, it was the thing, it was the thing. I think revive is going to be less of an issue these days because they did bring out crosshairs before, which I actually think is more powerful than decap. So there is instant counters to this in the game already, which is great. If you haven't got someone like Raulito or Heng Yen, you definitely should look into picking him up. Heng Yen especially, very, very good character. And the second part of this is all teammates regain up to 30% of their max HP for 5 turns. So that's 150% HP just from this character. It is over 5 turns, so it's not going to combat things too heavily like infection. There are obviously 3-turn 200% infections out there, and this isn't going to help that. It's going to get 90% of that heal in, but other than that, it's not going to do anything. Because infection is all or nothing, you could heal 99% of the infection. You could heal someone 199% on that 200% infection, they'll still die. And I still do think that infection is kind of broken like that. It isn't really good. It isn't well made. It's kind of like it's missing big bits in the middle. And I do talk about it in the past, but I think like if you were to heal 50% of whatever's required, they should only take 50% of their HP as damage. So if someone's got 200% infection, you heal 100%, that's 50% of the 200%. They've got 10,000 HP. Because you've healed 50%, they take half their health as damage, so 5k. That's still huge amounts of damage. You could probably reduce the amount of turns. I don't know, you could do different things. I think all or nothing is generally speaking not very well thought out, and it's just slapped in the game just to hope that it will attract some people to purchase characters with that. And it doesn't add much depth to the game, if I'm honest. Bleed, burn, that sort of thing, it adds depth. There's a bit more thought process, lacerators, that sort of thing, and I think infection is just kind of like a really dumbed down version of that. So all in all, the rush is pretty decent in terms of a medic rush. It isn't terrible, but will it play into the rest of his kit? We'll have to wait and see. As we go across to the active skill, it is called Bonus HP. It has an initial cooldown of 3, and number of uses 10. So generally speaking, a lot of active skills have 2, 3, 5. This has 3, 3, 10, so this is interesting. This character gets 50% bonus HP, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, not really. Like, it's only to this character. If it was like this character and another character, maybe that would be okay. I think that wouldn't be too terrible. And I would say even 50% bonus HP with all the rest staying the same wouldn't be too terrible. The initial con out of 3, generally speaking, this guy is going to be a defensive character. Generally, he should rush. You know, he would do his attack, then he would do his attack, and then he'd rush, even if he had his active skill to do. But you could just not level this active skill if you obviously did not want him to do it. Now, this is where we come to the most interesting part of this character in terms of what really makes this character stand out, is that he's going to be the first S-class human shield. And I know the majority of you know what a human shield is, but I'll go through it. It says, while this character is defending, all attacks from human enemies may only target them. And then it says swipe right on the character icon to defend. That's when you're on attack. When you put this character on a defense team, he automatically will shield every single turn unless he can rush. If he can rush, he'll do his rush. If he can active, he'll do his active. But otherwise, he'll do his specialist skill. So that means he will not gain AP from doing basic attacks. So it'll take him a bit longer to get his rush. Normally when a character does their basic attack on a defense team, they get between 42 and 56 AP if they've got the right weapons built, if they've got the right leaders, that sort of thing. Now this character won't get that much. He might get like 10 to 15 per turn because it's based on the amount of damage he takes, because it's only going to be AP that he takes. If you have a weapon that's AP on defense, you know, he'll get more AP. If you've got him behind a Pete has AP on defense base as his leader skill, so he'll get a little bit more AP that way. And this is where like long-term debate in terms of, is it worth leveling a character's rush when they have a human shield? This character's rush, I'd probably say it kind of is worth leveling his rush just to, you know, make it so it happens a little bit faster. It's not going to happen that fast anyway, but it'll happen like turn 4, 5, 6. Rather than turn like 6, 7, 8 when it's taking basic attacks. So there's going to be like 2 fear factors here. Specialist skill human shield isn't going to be a big fear factor for veteran players. We've dealt with those for a long time. We know how to deal with those players. Newer players coming into the game might see this, or like people who have only been in the game for like 6 months might see this and think this is like terrible and it's going to be so hard to take down, because believe it or not, there are players out there who really struggle with killing Kapoor, for instance. Me as a veteran, I melt Kapoor pretty easily, especially since Princess comes out. I one-shot Kapoor with most of my characters' rushes, very easy to take down for me. But there are some people who can't take him down very easily because they A, don't know how to deal with him, or B, do not have the kind of roster to deal with him. And that's going to be exactly the same situation with Frost, because obviously the best way to deal with a shield is a character with focus. If you have a focus rush or focus active, you can completely bypass shields. So for instance, back in the day, 6-star era, there wasn't really a character that was released in the sort of like wider game base, except there was a 5-star called Kate, and Kate was used in a lot of my teams. A lot of people be like, coming onto my streams, why are you using Kate? And then I would just rush with Kate and bypass shields, and people just didn't realize that's how easy it was to get past the shield. You know, some people would take 3 or 4 turns to take out a shield. They're also having to deal with rushes, revives, and stuff. They have to decap the shield, they get frustrated. I'm just bypassing the shield on turn 3, doing all my rushes on their medics and their, you know, revives, decapping them as well because I had a decap back then, and that's it. It's easy, and then you just leave the shield till last and take them out. It's a bit harder now in the S-class era because you're going to have to rely on that 5-star again potentially, or if you got lucky, for instance, on the last war wheel, or like myself have been lucky on a promo wheel and managed to get Alice, who is going to be gold dust against Frost because she has a 2-turn focus. She's going to be easily combating this character because basically you do not want to be doing basic attacks against this character at all. The kind of weapons that he can get in his hands now, we're talking about elusive impair and also dazing the enemy when getting a crit as the new 4 slot. Those upgrades are just insane in the armory. They are absolutely insane. I've nearly got a weapon that can use that as well myself. And on a character that's going to have huge amounts of defense, like let's just say he gets an extra, let's say 4K, I think he could get like a 3.5, 4K boost on his defense stat. The second he defends, he gets a 50% boost again. So instantly he's going to have, you know, up to 12, 13K defense. He's not taking any damage. Like, he's not taking any damage. We're talking like double-digit damage most of the time. Even from S-class characters, you're lucky if those rushes are going to even touch him at all. Defense down is going to be a must, or taking out the rest of the team so he stops shielding. That's going to be one of the better ways to do it probably. But then you're going to have to deal with that rush, so you're going to have some sort of control. So Frost is just going to be a very, very slowed down meat shield. He's like a much, much stronger, tankier version of Kapoor, in that you have to attack him because he's a human shield, and that he will keep himself alive with his adrenaline rush, whereas Kapoor keeps himself alive with his active, which is a bit easier to combat. Now, Kapoor does have a bit more of an annoying specialist skill when it comes to last character alive with the evasion. However, with Normalize being there, it is a little bit combated now. But we're getting into that seemingly that defensive meta again, where the teams are just so massively tanked out. And I hated that meta in the 6-dot era, not because it was like hard, it was because it was dull. Like, it took a long time to take out defenses, it was extremely slow. So you're gonna have to start building your team where at least one of your characters does defense down or attack up, like if you didn't already before, because the characters that are coming out now, the S-class stats, huge amounts of defensive stats, it's going to be very, very hard to deal with otherwise. Do I think he's worth pulling for? I think in the current system, in terms of like we're hitting that tankier defense meta at the moment, I think that it could be the way to go. I think if, like for instance, Mercer is a leader and then this guy next to Mercer's going to potentially stun turn 1, he's going to give him the freedom, there's going to be a shield turn 1 for like maybe 2 or 3 of your characters on their first attacks. That is going to be hard to deal with for anybody if you do not have a disarm. So potentially the sort of teams you can build this character are going to be dangerous. The only questionable thing about him is being a medic and having the medic rush and then being a human shield. It does look a lot like the first 6-star shield that came out, which was Koa, in terms of Koa being more of a healer for whatever reason. I think it was just a self-heal and maybe heal someone else, I can't really remember. But that wasn't too powerful. It'll be like the 3rd or 4th shield that comes out that'll be a bit more difficult to deal with. But that is the end of my video, guys. Do tell me what you think about Frost and the new human shield coming to the game as an S-class. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.